I don't see the Golden State Warriors bringing home another championship.
I do believe the Warriors dynasty and the Warriors run is officially over.
It's over for them now. We will never see Steph in another NBA Finals, ever.
6 assists for Green. Curry along 3. It's good! Steph Curry from way downtown.
Kid, Looney another board. He's got 20. Thompson comes in.
Wiggins is horrifying. It's unspeakable they did this.
Side to Wiggins. Goes by Bullock. Oh! Drops the sledgehammer.
What are they going to say now? What are they going to say now?
The year is June of 2019, and the Golden State Warriors franchise was at its lowest point yet. A brutal finals loss to the Toronto Raptors left the future of the once dominant dynasty in a foggy cloud full of worry. Klay Thompson had suffered a tragic ACL injury in the finals, and Kevin Durant, who had an even worse Achilles injury, appeared to be on the way out. Two-way specialist Draymond Green seemed like he had lost a step on both offense and defense, and Steph Curry stood alone. A team that once rose to the top of the basketball world as a dynasty had fallen in the blink of an eye, and many spectators believed the story would end like this. The Warriors looked like they were doomed to a miserable grave, and Steph Curry would finish the tail end of his illustrious prime in agony. The Warriors had had their fun, but now their time was up. It was time for their reign of terror to come to an end. Little did the doubters know, Golden State wasn't just satisfied with 3 rings in the Steph Curry era, they desired more. The ensuing seasons featured strategic rebuilding, excellent trade decisions, and fantastic development from once unknown players. 3 years following the 2019 finals, in 2022, Golden State stood tall as NBA champions once again. So how did they do it? How did the Golden State Warriors take what was a team full of aged veterans and transform them into a thriving championship team? How did Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green earn their revenge and redemption against the league? How did the Warriors do it once again? This is how the Golden State Warriors saved their dynasty. From 2015 to 2019, the Golden State Warriors were a force to be reckoned with in the NBA. 3 rings, 4 Western Conference Finals titles, and a booming star-studded core that showed no signs of stopping anytime soon. This story begins in the 2019 playoffs, where Golden State was chasing yet another ring to add to their collection. They wanted to three-peat, but those hopes soon fell apart, as the unfortunate injury bug paid its visit to the Warriors' locker room. DeMarcus Cousins, their starting center, suffered a torn left quad in the Round 1 series against the LA Clippers. Then in Round 2 against the Houston Rockets, their superstar forward Kevin Durant strained his right calf. These 2 key pieces would be sidelined for a majority of the Warriors' Western Conference playoff run, but this didn't affect Golden State one bit. Steph Curry, the at that point 3-time champ and 2-time MVP, put the team on his back and guided them to a finals appearance for the 5th straight year. The Warriors had defeated the Clippers in 6, the Rockets in 6, and the Trailblazers in 4, setting up a date with the hungry Toronto Raptors in the NBA Finals. However, unlike in the past when Golden State had swiftly beaten their opponent, this time, they met their match. The Warriors suffered key injuries to Kevon Looney, Klay Thompson, Andre Iguodala, and Kevin Durant in these finals. In Game 5, when the Warriors were facing a 3-1 deficit, KD returned from a calf injury he suffered against the Rockets in Round 2, but this comeback was short-lived. 1 quarter into Game 5, Durant tore his Achilles. The superstar had fallen to the most devastating injury in basketball, and this left the Warriors incredibly undermanned. Still, Dub Nation prevailed. The Warriors won Game 5 in spectacular fashion as Steph Curry and Klay Thompson took over down the stretch to win it. A phenomenal victory that sent shockwaves through the NBA world. Most teams would have bowed their head down and accepted the losing fate that awaited them, but the Warriors appeared unfazed by the multitude of excruciating injuries their club had faced. They had forced a Game 6 on their home floor, the last game at the historic Oracle Arena that had been Golden State's home for decades. This could have been the beginning of what was an inspiring 3-1 comeback that led to a three-peat, but instead, the Warriors fell short. Klay Thompson tore his ACL going up for a dunk in the late third quarter, which destroyed any momentum the Warriors were building. Thompson had been known as an Iron Man with health for a great majority of his career, but now, he was facing his worst injury yet. Golden State lost in 6 to the Toronto Raptors, and for the first time in 3 years, there was a new champion in the NBA. The Golden State Warriors' crown had been taken from them and placed on Kawhi Leonard and the Toronto Raptors. Not only did the Warriors lose the NBA Finals, but they lost it in a crippling and catastrophic fashion. Their star-studded core had burned to the ground, with many key players facing severe injury problems of their own, but the pain wasn't done yet. In the summer of 2019, superstar Kevin Durant, who had been with the team for 3 seasons, departed in free agency for Brooklyn. The Warriors lost one of their most important pieces. KD had been the Finals MVP in both championships he won with Golden State, and now he was gone. The reason for him leaving can be accredited to many factors. Durant was thankful for his time in Golden State, but he wanted to show his doubters that he could win a championship elsewhere. Durant also had beef with Warriors veteran Draymond Green. The two had gotten into an argument on the bench in a game in November of 2018, where Green reportedly told KD that the Warriors don't need him and that they could win without him. The two never reconciled, and the Warriors front office chose to sweep this bad blood under the rug instead of making the two face each other and talk it out. KD was now wearing different colored jerseys with another franchise in Brooklyn, but the Warriors weren't letting him go without a fight. Bob Myers, the general manager of the team, formulated a plan that would give the Warriors D'Angelo Russell in exchange for KD. Russell was an all-star guard for the Nets who was a free agent, and he desired a max contract from whichever team that wanted to sign him. The Warriors organized a sign-and-trade with the Brooklyn Nets that would send Kevin Durant to Brooklyn for D'Angelo Russell. D'Lo would then sign the max contract he wanted in Golden State, which would give the Warriors a massive asset to their squad. Golden State first needed to clear up cap space to orchestrate this move, so they sent cornerstone piece Andre Iguodala and a first-round pick to Memphis. Step 1 of the process was complete. However, KD, the Nets, and D'Angelo Russell all needed to agree to the terms. D'Lo quickly said that he was interested in going to Golden State, and the Nets were also content with making the sign-and-trade. But this deal wasn't complete yet. Kevin Durant demanded more, asking for a first-round pick to be sent to Brooklyn. Golden State obliged, sending a heavily protected 2020 first-round pick to the Nets to complete the trade. And just like that, KD was a Net, and D'Lo was a Warrior. The sign-and-trade was complete. The basketball world didn't know it at the time, but this deal played a massive role in the Warriors' future title hopes. D'Angelo Russell may have not been an ideal fit, but he was an asset, a player who could be used in another trade to grab a key piece for the Warriors. Durant could have very well left Golden State for nothing, but this calculated move by the Warriors front office left them with an all-star guard. Klay Thompson and Draymond Green then re-signed with the team, Klay getting 5 years, $190 million, and Draymond getting 4 years, $100 million. The core was locked up for the foreseeable future, but once the flames died down, a harsh dose of reality still stared the Warriors in the eye. Klay Thompson would be out for the entirety of the 2019-20 season with an ACL tear. Draymond Green was only getting older, and Steph Curry was all alone. What awaited the Warriors was their worst season in 2 decades, and it was a disaster from the very beginning. The Warriors opened up the 2019-20 season playing dreadful basketball, and it became apparent very quickly that the team was not the same contender of the past. D'Angelo Russell and Steph Curry were an awkward fit. both needed the ball in their hands, and the two were mediocre on the defensive end. Draymond Green played pitiful basketball, admitting himself that he wasn't interested in playing the games that season. Steve Kerr, the Warriors head coach, called Draymond the worst meaningless games player he'd ever seen, and this truth rang clear throughout the year. On October 30th, 2019, Steph Curry broke his left hand going up for a layup, which essentially ended his season. Steph missed all but one game following this injury, which sent the Warriors into a freefall. Klay Thompson, who was out with an ACL tear, and Curry, who was out with a broken hand, represented a true pause in the Splash Bros era. The two players who had captivated the league for years with their three-point shooting were sidelined. Golden State fell to the bottom of the barrel and were getting destroyed and dismantled each and every game. The roster was horribly constructed, with G League players and low-level free agents surrounding the few recognizable faces. One glowing bright spot in a season full of darkness took place on Christmas Day 2019, where the Warriors destroyed the Rockets at home to grab their 8th win of the season. Draymond Green scored 20 points with 2 triples, guiding his team to an exciting victory. Even among all the losing, Golden State still couldn't allow themselves to lose to their rival Rockets. But once this day passed, the losses continued racking up. For the first time in what seemed like forever, the Warriors were pushed off their place on the top of Mount Basketball and thrown into the abyss of countless losses and blowouts. The very same terror the Warriors had subjected on their opponents for years was being hurled right back at them, and they had no choice but to accept the punishment. If you asked any spectator during this time, they would tell you that the Warriors dynasty was dead in the water, that there would be no more championships for Steph Curry to add to his legacy. Draymond Green even admitted in 2022 that during this season, he himself, the most passionate, confident player on the team, thought that Golden State's window had closed. But amidst this losing, the Warriors were planning. Their eyes were centered on the future, and Golden State's front office was about to make one of the most important trades in their franchise's history. Throughout the 2019-20 season, the elephant in the room had been D'Angelo Russell. A great majority of NBA fans knew his future wouldn't be in Golden State due to the poor fit between him, Steph, and Klay, and a trade including him seemed inevitable. On February 6th, 2020, booming headlines were released to the NBA world stating that the Warriors had acquired Andrew Wiggins and a 2021 Timberwolves protected first-round pick, a trade that thrilled Minnesota Timberwolves fans but confused Golden State Warriors fans. After all of the noise surrounding D'Lo, to receive a package of this poor nature felt like a slap in the face to many fans. Andrew Wiggins was a former #1 pick who had failed to reach his potential in Minnesota. After scouts hailed him as the next Paul George or Tracy McGrady, Wiggins had been an average starter with a myriad of question marks surrounding his effort. The hope was that Wiggs could fit in as a two-way small forward on the championship team, but whether or not he could reach that level was unknown. The Golden State Warriors had put all of their chips in the Andrew Wiggins basket, a risky, boom-or-bust move that could be the difference between a championship or sitting at home. The 2019-20 season for the Warriors came to an abrupt ending once the season was suspended in March of 2020, and with no invitation to the bubble, it was night-night for Golden State. Dub Nation's eyes were no longer on the playoffs as they had been for so many years. This time around, everyone's attention was focused on the 2020 draft. The 2020 draft lottery saw the Warriors enter with one of the highest odds of earning the top pick, and they landed the #2 spot. A promising result. The Warriors had a chance to inject some talented youth into their veteran core. There were two main players that the Warriors were targeting: LaMelo Ball out of Australia, and James Wiseman from the University of Memphis. Ball was a flashy playmaking guard, and while he was talented, there were some concerns regarding the fit between him, Steph, and Klay. Wiseman, on the other hand, appeared to be the perfect fit for the Warriors. As star-studded as Golden State was in the past, their dynasties had always been led by forwards and guards, not centers. Wiseman would fit a massive hole that Golden State was lacking, a rim-running, shot-blocking big that the team had desired for years. Golden State, intrigued by Wiseman's potential and skill, selected him with the number 2 pick, marking the beginning of the official creation of the Warriors' young core. Players like Wiseman, Kevon Looney, and the little-known at the time Jordan Poole would be the first pieces that would represent a new era in the Bay. Looney and Wiseman were both young centers, and Jordan Poole was a shot-creating guard, who arrived with the 28th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft. Poole had struggled in his rookie season, and had bounced around from the bench to the G League, but the Warriors believed in his potential. Yet, just as fans were celebrating the new addition in Wiseman, nightmarish headlines were released to the public regarding Klay Thompson. From June 2019 up until November 2020, Klay Thompson had been recovering from his torn ACL injury he suffered during the 2019 finals. It had been a rocky road full of highs and lows, but it looked like his much-awaited return was looming. Yet, in just a split second, every bit of work Thompson had done was erased. On November 19th, 2020, it was announced that Klay Thompson had suffered a torn Achilles. One of the worst possible injuries a player can face had struck Klay, and this was agonizing news for not only Warriors fans, but NBA fans. Thompson had now torn his left ACL, and ruptured his right Achilles. 2 devastating injuries in a row, and a massive blow to the Warriors' title hopes. The Splash Bros would be put on pause yet again, and the Warriors had no choice but to put their heads down and continue to build. Outside of James Wiseman, the Warriors' biggest addition to their squad was Kelly Oubre Jr. from OKC, who was traded for a protected 2021 first-round pick. Oubre was an explosive 25-year-old slasher, and the Warriors were motivated to make the deal after finding out about Klay's injury. Oubre would give them much-needed two-way play, but when it came strictly to defense, the Warriors targeted Kent Bazemore and Gary Payton II. Bazemore was a former Warrior who had bounced around the league and was looking to prove himself, while Payton was an unknown from the Washington Wizards. Payton would spend a majority of the 2020-21 season in the G League, but down the line, he would become a key piece for the team. Outside of those players, the real additions to the roster came from those who were already on the squad. Jordan Poole and Juan Toscano Anderson would evolve into solid contributors to the team, and just like that, the Warriors were ready to rumble. The expectations for the 2020-21 season in Golden State were promising, and it all stood on the shoulders of the 2-time MVP Steph Curry. Curry had a subpar 2019-20 season that was prematurely ended due to his broken hand, and he needed to remind the NBA world of what he was capable of. The 2020-21 season for Golden State was an up-and-down roller coaster filled with frustration and excitement. Steph Curry played perhaps his greatest basketball yet in year 12, averaging a league-leading 32 points per game with 6 dimes on a scorching hot 42% from 3. Any question marks surrounding the guard and his play were erased in an instant. Steph Curry was back and ready to lead the Warriors to wins. He couldn't do it himself though. Andrew Wiggins, acquired in the D'Angelo Russell trade, fit in perfectly as the starting small forward. Wiggins gave the team athleticism, promising defense, and averaged 1 block and 1 steal to go along with 18 points per game. The Warriors' young core was also beginning to take shape, with Jordan Poole emerging from the smoke as a key rotation piece. Poole scored 12 points per game and displayed his limitless shooting potential on a nightly basis. At times, he looked like Steph Curry Jr. with his shots, hitting off-balance, tough jumpers on a regular basis. Just 1 year prior, Poole was an unknown G League player who a great majority of fans wrote off as just another bench player. But now, he was frequently sending Chase Center into a frenzy with his multitude of buzzer-beating shots, earning the nickname Pool Party. The development of the young guys wasn't smooth sailing for every Golden State player though. James Wiseman, the number 2 pick, had a shaky rookie season, playing just 37 games out of 72. When he did play, Wiseman had a poor feel for the game, looking lost on both ends of the ball, ending his season in April of 2021 with a torn meniscus. A disappointing start, but what took the headlines as an even bigger disaster was Kelly Oubre Jr. Oubre, the most anticipated free agent signing in the fall of 2020, struggled on offense, going from 35% from 3 the prior year to 31%. His basketball IQ was below average, and according to reports from Andrew Bogut, a former Warriors big man, he caused a disturbance in the locker room. Oubre was reportedly questioned on if he would be willing to come off the bench once Klay Thompson returned from injury. Oubre responded by saying he was more than a bench player and wouldn't do it, which frustrated many of his teammates. Oubre denied these claims, but what is worth noting is that the Warriors' chemistry as a unit was shaky at best. The team hovered around the 500 record mark for the first few months of the season, which disappointed many fans. The hope was that Golden State would return to the formidable championship contender they were in the past, but all they were now was mediocre. On April 9th, 2021, the Warriors lost to the Washington Wizards, which gave them an unpleasant 24-28 record. The team was just barely in the playoff picture at the 10th seed, and all eyes were on Steph Curry to step up. The Warriors had relied on Curry for years to carry their team through thick and thin, and like he had done countless times in the past, Steph was about to do it again. Curry averaged a mind-boggling 37 points per game in the final month of the season, and the Warriors went 15-5 as Steph dragged his team from 4 games below 500 all the way to a 39-33 record. Curry had fire in his eyes and was determined to book a trip to the playoffs, and these fantastic numbers landed him the 3rd spot in the MVP race. The Warriors' overall record may have not been the most intimidating, but this late season run did show one thing. Golden State had the DNA of a championship team, and were just a few more minor pieces away from returning to a contender. The Warriors didn't officially grab a spot in the playoffs just yet though. They still had to win 1 game in the play-in. Golden State had to beat either the Los Angeles Lakers or the Memphis Grizzlies, but unfortunately, they failed to do both. In a battle for the 7th seed in LA, LeBron James and his squad came out on top. LBJ nailed an impossible 3 over Steph that broke the hearts of Golden State, but the Warriors weren't eliminated yet. They had a chance to secure the 8th seed in the final play-in game against Memphis, but the Dubs fell short again. Ja Morant, an up-and-coming star guard for the Grizzlies, iced the game in overtime to send his team to the playoffs. The Warriors' season was over in agonizing fashion when it looked like they were brewing something special. A disappointing finish, but there was little fear in the Bay Area. Steph Curry was confident in his team, even stating after this Grizzlies loss that you don't want to see us next year.
Don't want to see us next year.
Some laughed this statement off, others believed him, but what was clear was that the Warriors were slowly evolving into contenders once again, and with Steph at the helm, you can never count them out. The 2021 offseason for Golden State was one of the most important summers for the franchise in their history, and it all began with the 2021 draft. The team landed the number 7 pick from Minnesota that was included in the D'Angelo Russell trade, as well as their own number 14 pick. The Andrew Wiggins trade was the gift that kept on giving. Not only did the team get a valuable 3-and-D wing, but they also had the chance to add another piece to their growing young core. Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody were selected at 7 and 14. Both were seen as high-ceiling players that could evolve into stars down the line. Some spectators criticized Golden State for this decision, saying that they should have traded these picks to get more win-now pieces. Those win-now pieces would instead be targeted in free agency. The Warriors needed depth, and now was their chance to stack up on it. The Warriors first started off by signing Nemanja Bjelica, Otto Porter, and former Warriors Finals MVP Andre Iguodala. Porter and Bjelica would be key off-the-bench players, while Iguodala added a veteran, championship-minded presence to the squad. Kelly Oubre and Kent Bazemore both departed in free agency, with Bazemore himself even taking less money and joining the Lakers because he believed LA had a higher chance of winning the championship. The Warriors then re-signed Steph Curry to a 5-year, $215 million deal, a well-deserved bag for the king of their franchise. Right before the season began, the Warriors guaranteed the contract of defensive guard Gary Payton II, which completed their roster. An offseason filled with gaining depth and young guys was complete. The Warriors were ready for the challenge ahead. Curry was the captain of the ship, while Draymond and Wiggins stood tall behind him. The 2021-22 season saw the Warriors smash expectations, opening up the first 20 games with 18 wins. Golden State's depth was even more strong than anticipated. Players like Otto Porter, Gary Payton Jr., and Nemanja Bjelica energized the second unit with fiery shooting and disciplined defense. Perhaps the most inspiring story was of defensive specialist Gary Payton II, who just 1 year prior was a G League player struggling to crack NBA minutes. During this time, Payton felt his chances of remaining in the NBA were low, so he applied to the Warriors for a video coordinating job. Instead, an NBA contract offer came his way, and now he was an important piece to a team chasing a ring. On the offensive end, it was Jordan Poole who stole the attention. Poole had improved dramatically as a scorer, upping his numbers from 12 a game the prior year to 18. He shot 36% from 3 and 92% from the line, which led the league, with 4 dimes. Second-year player James Wiseman wasn't able to recover from his torn meniscus in time to play actual minutes this season, but Kevon Looney had no problem taking his place. Looney and Draymond Green manned the middle, providing electric interior defense. For years, the Warriors had lacked a true rim-running big man during their prior championship runs. Kevon Looney filled that slot perfectly. He was a consistent, solid player with a defensive presence who fit the Warriors system well. Andrew Wiggins had become everything the Warriors could possibly dream of as a 3-and-D wing, and for the first time in his career, he was an all-star. That's right, the Warriors had a trio of all-stars to their name: Steph, Draymond, and Andrew Wiggins. A fitting award for Wiggs. He had finally unlocked his potential in the Bay. The Warriors had a fantastic starting lineup and an impressive bench, but the player who made all of this possible was Stephen Curry. Curry started off the season putting up his usual dominant numbers, with an all-time three-point achievement on his mind. Steph had the chance to break the record for the most three-pointers by one player in NBA history, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but Steph's play surprisingly diminished as the season progressed. Curry frequently had games in which he shot well below average from the field, causing many fans to wonder if his game had taken a step back with age. Still, this slump didn't take the headlines, as even bigger news came into the forefront. In a December 2021 game against the New York Knicks, Steph Curry did it, hitting his 2,000th 974th triple, giving him the most threes by any player in NBA history.
Start Wiggins again. Here's Curry for the record. It's good! There it is! Stephen Curry, the all-time three-point king in the NBA!
An achievement 12 years in the making. Curry had done what no other player had ever accomplished before. He was the all-time NBA three-point king, the greatest shooter ever. An incredible moment. The elephant in the room was gone, and now the Warriors could target the Larry O'Brien trophy. As the season progressed, Curry shook off his slump, reminding the league of why he was so feared, finishing the year with a 25 points per game average. One Splash Bro was setting the league on fire, and the other was about to make his grand return. For 2.5 years, Klay Thompson had patiently worked back from his devastating ACL and Achilles injuries. Many players in his position would have quit, but Klay kept fighting, and he was almost at the finish line. In a January 2022 game against the Cleveland Cavaliers, Killer Klay was back, sending Chase Center into a frenzy with his beloved three-point stroke and nasty right-handed hammer. The second Splash Bro had returned in triumphant fashion, and fans were eager to see the big three of Draymond, Steph, and Klay share the floor together once again. However, this excitement was quickly destroyed in a March 2022 game against the Boston Celtics, where Steph Curry injured his left ankle as opposing guard Marcus Smart went diving for a loose ball. Steph ended up missing the rest of the regular season with this injury, but missed no time in the playoffs. A sigh of relief flowed through the Bay, and the Warriors trudged on, finishing their season with 53 wins and the 3rd seed. A 14-win improvement from the prior year, with the roster far more polished than the past. 3 years prior, it looked like Golden State's dynasty was dead in the water. With an injured Klay, an aging Draymond, and a superstar in Kevin Durant who had left the team in free agency, the Warriors' time at the top of the NBA seemed finished. 3 years later, the Warriors were stronger than ever, landing the number 3 seed in a competitive Western Conference. A ruthless playoff run awaited them, but the Warriors were familiar with this stage. The quest to win the 4th ring in 8 years began against the Denver Nuggets in round 1, and the Warriors destroyed their opponent. Golden State beat Denver in 5, with Steph returning from injury and coming off the bench in every game except Game 5. Curry appeared more quick and confident than ever, scoring 28 points per game on 50% shooting from the field and 40% from 3. Draymond Green contributed defensively as well, stealing the ball from the 2-time MVP Nikola Jokic in crunch time of Game 3 to seal the series. For the first time in nearly 3 years, the big three of Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Steph Curry shared the floor with one another. The same trio that had shattered records, that had achieved 73 wins and 3 championships. Finally, they were all healthy once again. The Memphis Grizzlies were up next in round 2, and the Warriors had their greatest challenge yet. Memphis was a young and upcoming squad filled with inexperienced but hungry players. If there was any team that wanted to burst the Warriors' bubble, it was the Grizzlies, but Golden State prevailed. Game 1 saw the Warriors just barely escape with the W, as Klay Thompson stepped up to the plate in crunch time. He nailed a clutch 3, and then played lockdown defense on Ja Morant to seal the win. The two-way beast was back and better than ever. Klay Thompson looked like his old self, and guided his team to a huge victory. In Game 2, Golden State lost a chippy battle to Memphis by 5, with beef growing between both sides regarding Warriors guard Gary Payton II. Payton had gotten injured by Dillon Brooks on a hard foul going up for a layup. Warriors coach Steve Kerr responded by calling the play dirty, and saying that Dillon Brooks broke the code by putting Payton's season in jeopardy with this foul. Both sides continued building frustration towards one another, but the Warriors came out on top, winning both games 3 and 4 and taking the series in 6. Golden State had triumphed, eliminating the trash-talking Grizzlies and earning themselves a trip to the Western Conference Finals. Only one team separated the Warriors from the NBA Finals, that team being the Dallas Mavericks, led by rising superstar Luka Doncic. The Mavs had just beaten the 64-win number 1 seeded Phoenix Suns the prior round in stunning fashion, and Golden State needed to shut down Dallas's growing momentum. They did just that. The Warriors destroyed the Mavericks in 5 to earn a trip to the NBA Finals. Steph Curry averaged 23, Klay Thompson averaged 18, and Jordan Poole averaged 16. On defense, it was Andrew Wiggins who stole the attention. Wiggins held Doncic to just 37% shooting in games 4 and 5. Unlike the past, this Warriors team wasn't constructed like a super team, and didn't have overwhelming star power. This squad was built with underdogs, with players who had been given up on by their previous teams, which made their Western Conference championship mean that much more. Golden State was back in the finals with swagger in their step. All that was needed were 4 more wins for the chip to be back in the Bay. The red-hot Boston Celtics were Golden State's final opponent on the biggest stage in basketball, and they were no easy foe. The Celtics went from 25-25 in the regular season to 51-31, entering the playoffs, winning 26 out of their final 32 games. They had beaten some of the most talented players in the league on their title run, and had an overpowering amount of momentum heading into the finals. The 2022 NBA Finals kicked off in San Francisco, and Boston stunned the Warriors. The Celtics overcame a 14-point fourth-quarter deficit, going on a 17-0 run to steal Game 1 from Golden State. The Warriors responded with a Game 2 victory, but on the road in Game 3, the Celtics once again exploded in the fourth quarter to win, taking a 2-1 series lead. No matter what heroics Steph Curry tried to put on display, the Celtics overcame them and out-talented Golden State. In this Game 3, Curry put up 31, Klay put up 25, and Wiggins put up 18, but it still wasn't enough to get the win. For the first time in their spectacular playoff run thus far, the Warriors looked vulnerable, and the Celtics appeared to have more talent. To add even more fuel to the fire, Steph Curry suffered a left foot injury in the fourth quarter of Game 3, which put the Warriors at an even bigger disadvantage. One more loss would put them on the brink of elimination, and their hopes of a redemption title run would be over. Golden State entered Game 4 in a hostile TD Garden on the road, with their season on the line. Lose and you go down to a 3-1 deficit that would be near impossible to overcome. Win and you flip the series back in your favor. Steph Curry, playing on a left foot injury, flipped his switch to a new level, scoring 43 points with 7 triples in Game 4. Curry started the game by nailing a pair of threes, even motioning to the Celtics crowd and talking smack. He knew he was in for a big night. Steph had a 24-point second half, taking over down the stretch, hitting clutch shot after clutch shot, and delivering his team the win. Anyone who had questioned his clutch ability was silenced. Steph Curry had showed up when his team needed him most. The Celtics looked like they had this series in the bag, but Curry and his unreal shot making had saved the Warriors' season. Game 5 was back home at Chase Center, and the Warriors continued their dominance. Andrew Wiggins scored 26, Klay scored 21, while Gary Payton II and Jordan Poole combined for 29 off the bench. These Warriors wouldn't stop fighting, and had taken a 3-2 lead. They headed back to Boston for Game 6, and by this point, the Celtics had ran out of gas. The Warriors danced on their newly formed grave, destroying the C's 103-90, as Steph Curry put up a marvelous 32 points as the cherry on top. The Warriors had done it. They were the kings of the basketball world once again, winning the 2022 NBA Championship. A tremendous playoff run, capped off by Curry Magic in the finals. This wasn't a one-man effort though. The entire team stepped up for this victory. Klay Thompson brought floor spacing and lethal three-point shooting. Draymond Green, who struggled early on in the series, locked in and energized his squad with his defense and playmaking. Andrew Wiggins also provided lockdown defense on Jason Tatum, holding the superstar forward to his worst playoff series yet. Otto Porter and Jordan Poole gave the team three-point shooting off the bench, while Kevon Looney and Gary Payton II brought impressive two-way play. Lastly, the player responsible for leading this team, Steph Curry, had perhaps the greatest playoff series of his career. He averaged 31 points per game on 48% from the field and 43% from three, with 5 dimes and 6 boards. Curry said night-night to the Celtics, defeating a well-constructed, skilled team in 6. His reward for this performance was not only a championship, but a Finals MVP to his name. For his entire career thus far, Steph Curry had been mocked and ridiculed by the NBA world for his lack of a Finals MVP trophy. Now he had finally gotten the accolade. He no longer had anything to prove. The Golden State Warriors had reached unequivocal dynasty status, earning their 4th ring in 8 years. This one meant just as much, if not more, than the others, because of the journey it took to accomplish it. In the summer of 2019, the Warriors' chances of getting another ring seemed slim. Klay Thompson was out with a major knee injury, Kevin Durant had left for Brooklyn, and the Warriors' depth was aging. The formidable core wasn't getting any younger, and the Warriors' front office knew they needed to make near-perfect decisions to win another championship. Additions like Andrew Wiggins, Gary Payton II, and Jordan Poole all played massive roles in their 2022 title. Gary Payton II and Jordan Poole were both ignored by a vast majority of other NBA teams, but as Warriors, they both developed and flourished. Andrew Wiggins was struggling in Minnesota, but Golden State saw his potential and took a chance. As a Warrior, Wiggins played a key role in their 2022 championship. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green all proved to the league that they still knew what it took to win on the biggest stage. The Big Three won their 4th ring together, and Steph Curry earned his first ever Finals MVP. The Warriors never gave up. They remained calm and patient with the process, and soon enough, they reaped the benefits, rising from the bottom of the league to becoming champions once again.